Hi, I'm Chris Templeton, and I'm very pleased to be here with Ms. Melodie Hilton. We are kicking off the Honesty Project, which is based on some work that I've done with what I call, and I'm the founder of Oh, the Stories We Tell, which basically is a set of questions and a model. And so what we're doing is we went through a recording of a number of podcasts and realized we really needed to put the front end, just a walk through the model so that you had the benefit of that. Melodie, thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you. I have always been interested in this model since you showed it to me. One of the things that I love about it is that it's got a great practical application, and we're kind of throwing in some of my drama, my domestic drama, just to emphasize how your structure, your way of thinking about things really helps bring a lot of the things that we're all looking for into practice. And that's where the hard idea for me has come, because I utilize a lot of the things that are available in today's society. I'm practicing meditation. I use prayer, which I find meditation and prayer to be very similar. I indulge in affirmations. There's a lot of different. So there's the Christianity, there's the metaphysical, there's, the spiritual, there's the emotional intelligence. And in your idea of, oh, the stories we tell really fits for me as a person, because I am that person who gets the story in my head and starts off on some sort of tract. And when I am able to pull back from that and balance it in a light that takes a lot of things into consideration, not just my emotional defensiveness or whatever it is that I'm going down the road on, then I'm practicing to be the person that I really would like to be without killing my passion or turning myself into a Stepford wife. So, all that said, why don't you talk to us a little bit about, what you have?
Deal. A couple of things just to point out, because I think a big part of what we'll do is I'll try to answer some of the things that you bring up that I think are relevant to what we're talking about. The first thing is, I think when I first shared just the basics of this model were probably 2014 or 2015. It's been 5 or 6 years, I think. And the thing that amazes me about this, and what I want people to understand, is once you kind of have the basics of this model, if it makes sense to you, it really sticks. It doesn't, there's just something about it that's compelling. The next thing is, for me, I think that what's important about the model is also that it should work across any kind of discipline, whether you're talking about Christianity, whether you're talking about meditation, whether you're talking about affirmations. What the model does is helps me to do all of those things in a way that has meaning for the person that's doing them. So I think that one of the reasons that it sticks with you is this idea that, oh my God, this really helps me to have a deeper understanding. I've moved from, oh, right, which we love to joke about, to, being in this centered and grounded place. And I kind of have a better understanding of why that is and what it means to do it in a way that serves me. So, so that's that. And I think it's really important to just kind of lay some of those things out on the table. This is not about woo-woo anything. There are parts that down the road that may seem that way, and even that I'm not convinced that they are. But the bottom line is, this is applicable and about making any of the practices that you do, which is the other thing that I wanted to just touch base on. This is all about practice. Everything that I'm going to talk about and that you and I talk about is about establishing practices that serve us and helping us find that grounded, more centered place in our lives, where there's meaning, where there's true happiness, like, oh my God, I really enjoy being here. So that's the last thing. So that's the last thing for this moment.
So I'd like to iterate also that this isn't really a therapy, it's a tool.
Mm-mm. Thank you very much. This is not about, I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist. What this model is for you to be able to provide yourself, what we talk about a lot is a pair of glasses, a lens that helps you to look at your life from a pretty different perspective and really make sense out of a lot of your own behavior. So it's about self-awareness in a really, really big way. I mean, it's really about having tools to be self-aware. And then when you have those tools for being self-aware, lo and behold, we become much more aware and much more understanding of everybody else's behavior, because we can see from the standpoint of these lenses, this model, how and a way to reinterpret other people's behavior. So thank you. That's a great point. So one of the things that people question is, why do I call this, Oh, the Stories We Tell? And the reason is I had heard somebody say, we've always heard about, oh, what's your story and that sort of thing. But when you look at this from a behavioral standpoint, when I say, gee, what are the stories that I'm telling about what's going on? The really important thing about that is it helps me to take a step outside of myself. What we used to always talk about in the 80s and 90s, what's the 10,000 foot view, or how do I get outside of myself, or how do I get out of my head? Well, when I frame up what I'm thinking or what other people are thinking as a story, gee, what's the story I'm telling myself? I immediately create space between me being in the moment, thinking, oh, how I feel is a fact, and this is just the way it is. And when I have the ability to just start by asking the simple question, oh my, what is the story I'm telling here? It really helps. For some reason, it helps us to disconnect from being fully in the moment in terms of my behavior is just the way it is, to being able to take a look and a step back and say, oh, what is the story I'm telling? And what fascinates me is people that really resonates with them. I mean, I think that's probably the first thing that resonated with you, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of places that I really do tell myself stories. One of them is when I go to bed. Whatever anxiety that may have snuck in, that I staved off all day, when I go down and the TV's off and the dogs are put to bed and the energy is dissipating out of the house, all of a sudden there's the stories, which are are my children healthy? Are they safe? Am I doing, what's going on in my job? Am I crashing and burning? Probably none of these things are true, but I might spend this valuable time when I should be either being thankful, grateful for my day, or in reality, calming these brain waves to the point where I have an amazing sleep.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm exciting myself, and those are clear and definite stories, and I am not alone with doing that.
No, I think it's only you. and that's the beauty of this is that you said it right on the money. There's a couple of places, right? There are so many places where it's almost not a story, because I am in a centered place and I do live in the moment and am kind of at peace. There's all kinds of places that everybody has them, but everybody has certain areas where they tell stories that do not serve them. And this idea of what's the story I'm telling gives me the first step at creating that space to say, gee, is this a good thing that I'm doing to myself, or am I driving myself crazy? Am I depriving myself of sleep? Am I creating stress in my life? And for some reason, and I think this is just another side note of one of the things, I believe more than anything else, everybody has the ability to look within themselves when they have the right tools to do it. And that's one of the reasons that I love the idea of what's the story you're telling, is because it creates the space to find out what that is. Wouldn't you say that was partly what drove you to be interested in this or caught your attention?
Yes, yes. I mean, you know, I recognize my knee-jerk reactions, and I would like, and I've had moments where I conquered those, and once I got a glimpse of that, but yet for whatever reason, I've, you know, maybe I'm, you know, I'm not as good as the time before when things were, I don't know, happier in my life. I'm going to use air quotes because things are pretty happy right now, of course. But you put these, again, that's probably a story. I was happier then. I was more centered. I handled my stresses that came to me, you know, the petty work grievances, you know, all of that. I handled it in a way that was so productive that so many things in my life just had an elevated sense of joy. And then, you know, by somehow I managed to fall off that cliff, or I changed things up, and different people came into my life with different, and I had different hurdles. And lo and behold, I wasn't addressing those hurdles in the same way I addressed them previously. And you know, so I want to, it's just like a diet, I guess, or an exercise regime. I want to get back out there and get that back, you know, get those abs back, get those mental
Yeah.
muscles back, I guess is what it is, right?
One of the things that I think is interesting to consider is a lot of times the stories that we tell about what's going on in the moment tend to be, in the places that we struggle, a lot more negative than when we look back at those stories, or we look back at those times. We tend to have a much more positive story, more authentic story, more honest story about those times. And I think that what's interesting is when you realize a lot of the stories that don't serve us are really pulling us out of the moment. When, you know, when people say, oh, you need to live in the moment, in large part what they're saying is you need to quit telling stories that aren't serving you and distracting you from being present in the moment. Does that make sense?
You know what? I love that, because I will tell you, I ran into somebody who was very much what could easily be described as an in the moment person. They said that their attitude was they were just here today, not looking forward, not looking back, just here today. And I found that was so inauthentic and boring. And you know,
Oh, thank God. I'm glad you're that.
I couldn't believe it. I actually finally met somebody who just totally professed to not look forward, not look back, and pretty much lived that. And I couldn't get over how out of balance the whole thing seemed. So to me, I think you're right. I think it really has to do about that. You know, being present means not winding yourself up with anxiety stories. Is one.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you and I have talked about that people will see down the line is this whole idea of people that try so hard to be enlightened. I'm not looking back. I'm not looking forward. I'm just here. And they even, you know, they lower their voice a little bit, and it just doesn't, for some reason, ring true. So that's a big part of what my motivation has been about figuring this stuff out, because it feels the same way to me. And I want to know how to be more in the moment. I want to be able to look back. I want to be able to look forward, but I don't want it to be, and what people don't tend to understand is that when we're told don't look back, don't look forward, just live in the moment. What they're saying in reality is don't tell crappy stories about the past and crappy stories about the future. And when people begin to recognize that they can reframe those crappy stories from the past, and they can reframe the stories that they want for the future, or the things that they're afraid of in the future, that then I really can live more in the moment, and
Yes.
I don't have to pretend to be doing it. And I don't need to tell everybody that this is what I'm doing. That's one of the other things that just cracks me up about people that are trying to be, enlightened, is that they have this desire to tell everybody about it. I have a desire to share a model with you. I have no desire to tell you how enlightened I am. As a matter of fact, I probably have more of a desire to tell you where I still struggle, just like you talk about with me. But there is something that's so grossly inauthentic about it, with so many people who say those kinds of things. And I think the thing that's really too bad is that then they sour what they sour people's perceptions of how they can be that, how they can be more in the moment. And so a big piece of this, funny that you mention it, is just saying, dude, let's get real. Let's figure out how to tell stories that serve us now, past, future, so that we can live now and really be in a place that's authentic and centered.
Absolutely. And putting together habits that, um, you know, uh, putting together habits that are win-wins, for the people in your life, whether that's your coworkers, your children, your spouses, your neighbors.
Well, it's where a lot of people start, isn't it? I mean, the default story for a lot of people in certain places is not a very happy one, and it's pretty negative, and it's pretty loaded with emotion, typically not very good emotion, and it doesn't serve anybody.
So, there's a fair amount of practice that has to happen, sometimes more in some periods of my life than others.
Yeah.
And so we've been dragging out all the stories and
Well, and having fun with them. And that's the thing is that I guess the last thing that we should say in this portion of the podcast is all stories, I don't care what it is, can become a place of authenticity, regardless of whether it happened 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, or yesterday, or what you're concerned about for the future. They can move from a place that doesn't serve you, that makes you emotionally unhappy and uncomfortable. Any story can be changed to be something that's authentic, that does not condone bad behavior, but helps me to put it in perspective for myself and for other people. And that's all about practice. And so, you can take the worst experience, and I can help you to understand with this model how to create a more authentic story that does not in any way diminish a tough circumstance or that sort of thing, but does give us the ability to kind of let go of that story and replace it with something that honors that, and also honors where I am today and where I want to go. So stories can be changed.
And one of the things I think I want to add to that is that I think a lot of times when people hear this type of conversation, the assumption is that you move from a negative words to positive words, and the positive words solve the problem.
Oh, you didn't know that's all you have to do? Just be really positive, Melodie. Come on.
Fake it until you make it.
Yeah, but that's not the answer, is it?
It's not. It's a bit of whitewashing in some ways. Yeah. And I think that what I really like is that your tool is not just changing negative words to positive words and then calling it solved.
Yep.
It's actually moving things, I think, that are negatively charged to a more neutral environment, and sometimes even the things that are positively charged but aren't necessarily healthy to a more neutral environment.
Absolutely. You're right on the money, and it's a great point. This is not just, hey, let's just be positive and everything's going to be okay, because we all know that's garbage, don't we? And yet we seem to still be stuck with, well, I don't know what else to do. And that's where this really helps, I think, is to say, okay, here's a way to start to put these things that I struggle with in perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's becomes constructive. I mean, the boomers were grown with the platitude of, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And social media is all about saying everything, but it's not necessarily constructive.
That's right.
We've lost that constructive point, and that's where I'd really like to fall. I don't know, what do you think? 80 to 90% of the time, it would be great if we could get it there. I'd say I'm a solid 60 to 75% right now. And I get to 80 or 90% sometimes after the first blush of having to do what I call reverse timeouts.
Yeah.
I started that when my daughter was little and I knew I was losing my patience with her. So I would give mommy a reverse timeout, and I would go into the bathroom and I would shut the door. But the problem was there was a gap underneath the bathroom door, so my little daughter would follow me and stick her fingers into the door, and then the cat would follow her, and the cat's paws would be under the door.
And no matter how mad you were, you couldn't help but laugh and kind of come down, could you?
I'd be sitting on the toilet, with the lid closed, sitting over there fuming, and I'd say, "Bert, take those fingers out from under the door," and you'd see the little fingers disappear, and then they'd come back again. But anyway, so my reverse timeouts have been in my life.
I love that. I'm going to add that. We're going to add that to the stories we tell. I had a reverse timeout. My wife didn't show up for a meeting with a very good friend, and she called and she's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Where are you?" And so she said, "I'll come down right now." And I was like, "No, it had been too long. Don't worry about it. Just reschedule with this person." So, but I had a story going, and this is one of the things let's wrap up with this. I am not saying, and you're not saying, that all of a sudden you're never going to have stories that don't serve you. That's for monks that meditate for 5 hours every day and, Jesus or whoever. But for the common man, you're always going to have stories that don't serve you. Hopefully what the end result of this is, as a result of practices, you have less of those and they don't have as much strength, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. So I come home and the whole way I'm putting together my list of, you never answer your phone, blah, 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 blah. And I am like, you know what? I don't want to blow up at my wife. And so I came in and she said, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "Honey," I wasn't quite this pleasant. I'm like, "I don't want to talk about this, because if we have one more word about it, I'm going to explode." I was really mad. And so that was uncomfortable, but we had an evening apart, did fine, got up the next morning, still a little bit of tension. And in the afternoon, when she came home from work, we both had smiles on our face and cleared the air. Now, we knew that would happen because we've been through it enough that's one of the ways that it happens. So another thing we've always learned is, never go to bed mad. Are you kidding me? I cannot do that. I just can't do it. At least not yet. And knowing that those kinds of things, those platitudes that we've so often told ourselves that these are the things that we need to do, absolutely make things worse. And so to be able to come in and give myself a reverse timeout, "Honey, don't talk to me because I'll get really cranky really fast," gave us both the room. And with time, it always, there's a platitude that is true. With time, things get better. And it's because we're not as angry and frustrated in our stories. Oh, the stories we tell. Man, oh man, huh?
I'm looking forward to more.
Me too. So thank you very much for this. And in the next one, we'll talk about the 3 questions that are kind of the next piece. And we've got probably 5 or 6 at least pieces to go through to help to make sense of it. But starting with, oh, what's the story I'm telling? And oh was just about making it light and easy. The little pause under the door, right? Oh, what's the story I'm telling now? Thank you.
All right. See you soon.